Hey guys, it's Nicole, and today I have a video featuring one of the layouts included in January 2015's Girl Crazy Kit. This is from Scrapbook Generation, and I will provide a link to these kits in the description below. This is one of the ones I had mentioned in a previous video that they, at the beginning of 2015, had revamped the kits to where for the same price, you were getting two double page layouts instead of the original one double page layout. So here I am just sort of laying out my photos and trying to figure out what I want to put where. I ended up kind of changing some of the photos around. They're still in the same placements, but I believe I don't have the finished layout in front of me. I believe mine does look a tiny bit different, only just because I chose not to use a couple die cuts and I had to move one or two of them to a different place. So at this point I am just cutting the branding strips off of the basil cardstock that came in the kit and then trimming down my papers. And this is probably the longest part of putting these kits together for me, only because I've kind of gotten spoiled and I'm so used to, on the Super Saver part of the Super Sketch Club kits that I also subscribe to, there is an awesomely detailed cutting guide. Like, it lays out exactly how you're supposed to cut the papers down. These just don't have that visual reference. You just have to read the instructions and it will tell you, the background strips for both pages are 12 by 6. So you just kind of need to go back and forth between the 4 by 6 photo that they include and the instructions and the sketch, and just kind of go back and forth and sort of, measure twice before you cut type of mentality. Here I'm just kind of going through this pack of die cuts that came with the kit, and it was kind of nice that it included an entire pack of these die cuts from Bo Bunny. And I'm just kind of going through and trying to make sure that I'm grabbing the ones that I'm supposed to be using so that they're kind of ready to go for me. And then I'm just using some distress inks to ink the edges of the papers. I believe I'm using Vintage Photo, which is just a dark brown. And I went ahead and cut out the rest of the inking from the video, and I'm going to go ahead and assemble the left-hand side of the layout. And apparently I'm going to fix my ATG gun first. I actually did this layout probably a month ago, but I'm sort of trying to catch up on all the videos that I need to edit. So I'm hoping in the next couple days to kind of go through and I think I have 8 to 10 videos that I want to edit, because I also want to continue with my Scrapbook Generation kits, especially because I have a bunch matched up with photos, but I also have an idea for kind of a new series to do on my channel, and it's going to involve some month in review layouts, mostly because that's kind of how I deal with my pictures. Like, I will go through and I'll take everything off my photo card, everything off my cell phone, and put it all in a folder labeled for that month, and then those are all in a folder for that year. And then I'll sit down and I'll open, say it's October 2015, so next month I'll open up that folder and I'll go through and make a list, and I know I'm going to do a month in review layout, and then I will go through in any of the photos that I want to do a layout for, I'll just make a quick note. Mostly stuff that I got my big camera out and took pictures of, stuff I know I've got, more than 3 or 4 photos on, and I can easily make a layout. I'll go and write those down, and then anything else that's left over that's kind of like a random picture that was just something I snapped on my phone or somebody sent me, I will go ahead and just crop them down to like 1 by 1s and just put them in a big collage, and I'm going to go through and do just a 1-page layout month in review. This is just some extra stuff that happened, and boom, I've got 30 or 40 pictures done and I don't really have that guilt of them, sitting on my hard drive. So I'm kind of itching to get into those. So I need to get these videos edited and sort of off of my SD card so that I've got space to film, some new videos. So I'm trying to find time to kind of do that, especially quiet time. My oldest has decided he's not going to take a nap anymore most days, so I will typically try to, tell him, okay, you don't have to sleep, but you do have to go to your room for quiet time because mommy needs some quiet time type of thing. So definitely wanting to get those videos edited as quickly as I can. So still working on the left-hand side of the page. I am going to be putting my journaling on that little Remember When die cut. So the little ampersand was supposed to go on top of that in the sample, so I'm just going to end up kind of tucking it behind it because I ended up using that for my journaling. There wasn't really a place on the layout that was sort of blatantly obvious as far as where they had intended you to put the journaling. That was a mouthful. So I just kind of decided, okay, I'm just going to run it through my printer, I'm going to put it on here, and then later I was like, oh, what am I supposed to do with this extra die cut? So I'm just going to end up, tucking it behind and going with that. This little tab, I am going to just take a little Technique Tuesday stamp that says I love you and stamp that in some brown ink. In hindsight, I kind of wish that I had stamped the date there, because I was just putting this layout away and I realized I had forgotten to put the date on there, so I'm going to have to go back and kind of find somewhere, on one of the pattern papers in the background or something to go ahead and stamp the date. I may just go ahead and stamp it in the lower corner of the layout because the background paper is white. So that part is not going to be in the video because I noticed on probably half of the layouts that I need to do process videos for, I didn't stamp the date. I'm kind of kicking myself in the butt for it because it's like, oh, I should have just done it when I had it out instead of having to, take 4 or 5 layouts, go back and figure out what the date was and where am I going to put it, and it's definitely easier and smarter to just do it all at the same time. I grabbed some red ink from the Ranger dye ink line and just stamped this little teeny tiny little phrase stamp on the bottom of where I'm going to print my journaling. And there it is after I've run it through my printer, and I just kind of put a strip of washi tape across the top so that when it runs through my printer it doesn't snag on anything. And then I'm going to just put some strips of foam adhesive on the back to go ahead and just kind of pop it up a little bit. And then this was kind of when I was like, oh, where am I going to put this? So I decided to just kind of carefully pull up my journaling block and kind of tuck it in behind it. And these photos are from my daughter's 6-month photos. And for whatever reason, she just thought it was hysterical if you blew on her hair and it kind of stood up. So the whole time that my photographer is taking pictures of her, I'm actually like crouching next to this little ottoman that she's laying on, just blowing on her hair for like 20 minutes to keep her kind of from rolling off of the ottoman and to kind of keep her giggling and stuff so that she could get the shots that she was trying to get. I added a little die cut that says date, went ahead and attached that tab, and then just took the tiny attacher and added some staples just to kind of make it look a little more interesting. And then I am moving on to the right hand page, and I'm just kind of doing everything that I did on the first page, just inking the edges of the papers, doing a quick ink job on some of the larger die cuts just so that they kind of don't look as out of place next to the pattern papers. And then I'm just using the left hand page to kind of line up the patterns for the right. And I was kind of surprised that with this one I actually, completed the whole left page, moved on to the right page, because typically I will almost always go ahead and do like the background, put your photos down, and then we'll kind of embellish from the right to the left for whatever reason. And the day that I did this, I was just kind of, nope, I'm going to do the whole left, I'm going to move to the whole right. And you can kind of see that little gap where my two photos being butted up against each other did not equal a total of 12 inches. So I'm just going to take my trimmer and I'm going to actually cut that down. And it doesn't bother me because typically when you put them in your page protector, they're gonna kind of be a tight fit anyways. So by the time I've, sliced off the edge, it's not so much, and it actually kind of gives it a little bit of wiggle room when it's in my album. And here I cut off the bottom of that little Polaroid frame because they said that that was, the paper that goes on the back of this little film strip. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim these two photos down. The sketch had called for two 3x4 photos, and I think I ended up doing 3.5x4 because I didn't want to cut off one of her chubby little arms or anything like that. So my photos were just a tiny bit wider than what the sample had shown. And this was one of those kits where I had actually managed to find 4x6 photos that I had already printed and were in one of my photo boxes, and just was able to match them up to a kit. Normally I will sort of edit them specifically towards one of these kits, but I got lucky that most of these were landscape 4x6s and then some 3x4s, to where I was able to just kind of trim them down real quick. And I'm just going through and trying to find the other little die cuts that I needed to put on this right-hand page. And there was a little red purse that they had in their sample that was supposed to go in there. And with my photos being wider, one, it wasn't going to fit, and two, I just really didn't like it. Like, for whatever reason, it just, in my mind, did not go with these photos and did not go with the page. So I decided to just toss it. It was one of those die cuts that I'm like, I know I'm never going to use it. I don't like it. I'm not going to hold on to it, hoping that eventually I'll like it. If I ever decide I absolutely need to have a red purse for some sort of project, I'll just cut one out on my silhouette and kind of go from there. So here I've just attached little pieces of foam tape to these smaller die cuts, just going ahead and putting those down. And here's that purse. I mean, I inked it, put adhesive on it and everything, and I was like, it just wasn't working, so I just pitched it. And that is both pages all ready to go. I just tucked the rest of the supplies back into the bag so I can do page 2 at a later time. So here's some close-up photos of the journaling, the stamped tag, and some of the embellishments on the right-hand page. So as always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.